The disruption score. Who actually wrecks possessions without fouling? There's a simple stat hiding inside the box score that almost nobody tracks on its own. Steals plus blocks minus personal fouls. It's not a complicated idea. Steals and blocks are two ways a defender can flat out kill a possession, take the ball away, or send the shot back. Personal fouls are the tax you pay for being aggressive on defense, and too many of them get you benched, foul out, or hand the other team free points at the line. Add the disruption, subtract the costs, and what's left is a rough measure of a player's defensive value per swing of effort. Guys who wreck opponents' offense without constantly putting them in the bonus. It's a blunt instrument. It says nothing about defensive positioning, help rotations, or the steals a guy gambles into and beats and gets beat on the back end. But blunt instruments are useful precisely because they're easier to read and run across 50 years of box scores. This one throws off a genuinely interesting leaderboard, especially once you split it by position, because the players who win this category at center look nothing like the players who win it at guard. I pulled every player's season from total sheet from each year in that range, summed the steals, blocks, and personal fouls for every player's career, and ranked by steals plus blocks minus personal fouls. Players were sorted into guard, forward, or center based on whichever position they play the most often across their listed seasons. Centers are the shot blocking mavens in this. This is the category the stats basically built for: rim protectors who generate huge block numbers, and the best ones do it without hacking their way into foul trouble. Hakeem Olajuwon's gap over the field is enormous, nearly 100 points clear of second place, built on a rare combination most rim protectors never have: guards' hands. He's the only center in the top 10 with steal totals that would be respectable for a point guard, which is what happens when you put up two seasons that each separately rank in the all-time top three for single season steals minus blocks, plus blocks minus personal fouls. The presence of Manu Bol and Mark Eaton this high is the stat being honest about its own limitations. Neither was a complete defender or remotely a complete player. Both were specialists who blocked an absurd number of shots and didn't do much else. But in a formula that only cares about steals, blocks, and fouls, pure shot blocking specialists were always going to punch above their weight. Victor Wembanyama cracking the top 10 in 3 seasons is the most startling line in the entire database. Everyone else here needed a decade plus to climb the list. He's on pace to obliterate it. The forwards have a much messier picture. Forwards the position with no clean defensive identity. Some of these guys are rim adjacent rebounders, some point forwards who gamble for steals on the perimeter, and the formula rewards both equally, which produces a far more varied list than the centers did. Anthony Davis at the top makes sense the moment you remember he's spent stretches of his career playing center defensively while logging power forward, and the box score is essentially borrowing the shot blocking profile of the center list while keeping a forward's listed position. Andrei Kirilenko in second is the stats' best argument for itself. AK-47 was never a star by conventional counting stats, but he was a genuine havoc engine. And this is one of the only single number stats where his career actually looks special. LeBron James in third's worth sitting with. Across 23 seasons, he racked up more steals than anyone else on that list and more total fouls than nearly anyone in the sport. And yet he still nets out third among forwards, which says something just about how long and productive his defensive career has been, even as the eye test on his defense has varied year to year. For the guards, there are no surprises in the mechanism here. Guards rarely block shots, so the list's almost entirely a referendum on who could pick a pocket without fouling out trying. Mookie Blaylock topping the list over Michael Jordan's the kind of result this kind of stat exists to produce. Jordan has more total steals, but Blaylock racked up nearly as many across far fewer fouls relative to his volume, and that ratio is the entire point of subtracting personal fouls in the first place. It's a reminder that career-defining stardom and the cleanest disruption numbers aren't the same for all players. Jason Kidd's case is the opposite of Mookie's 23 seasons and the most steals of anyone on the list, but also enough accumulated fouls across 2 decades to drag him down a third. Longevity cuts both ways in the formula. More seasons means more chances to rack up steals, but also more chance to rack up fouls. So what does this actually tell us? It isn't trying to be a complete defensive metric, and it shouldn't be read as one. It says nothing about defensive positioning, scheme, or the steals a player gambles into and gets beat on the back end of. What it does capture cleanly is a question worth asking on its own. Who generates defensive event after defensive event without it costing the team free throws and foul trouble? The centers list rewards shot blocking specialists almost by design. The forwards list is the most balanced of the three, capturing everything from the rim protecting big men hybrids to perimeter gamblers, and the guard list stripped of blocks almost entirely. comes close to a pure measure of how cleanly a player can pick pockets. None of that makes it a stand-in for real defensive value, but as a quick filter for who disrupted the game without fouling, 50 years of data says the answer mostly comes down to a short list of names, and at the top two or of the three position groups, you'll find players who were never quite appreciated enough for exactly the skill, why they were playing. If you like this content, you want to see the graphs, please subscribe at netwins.substack.com. Really appreciate it. And the full database with over 43,000 plus player seasons from 1946 to 2026 is free at willf123.github.io/NBA-net-wins. Thank you for your time.